For 2 decades, Ethiopia and Eritrea were locked in a bitter border conflict, leaving deep scars across the Horn of Africa. Families were torn apart, economies crippled, and a generation grew up in hostility. The border was a militarized zone, a barrier that seemed permanent. In 2018, a new leader, Abiy Ahmed, announced a seismic shift in policy. He accepted the Algiers Agreement, awarding the disputed town of Badme to Eritrea. This bold move dismantled the narrative of animosity overnight. Phone lines between the countries reconnected, symbolizing hope. Abiy spoke of forgiveness, reconciliation, and a shared destiny. His message resonated with people who remembered a time before the conflict. The hope for a new dawn was palpable, signaling a fundamental change. Could this really be the end of separation and animosity? The announcement sent shockwaves of hope across the region. The diplomatic breakthrough led to incredible scenes of reconciliation. In July 2018, Abiy Ahmed flew to Asmara, greeted by President Isaias Afwerki. Their embrace became the defining image of the peace process. The sight of them laughing and walking side by side was unimaginable months earlier. The streets of Asmara were filled with people waving flags in celebration. Isaias reciprocated with a visit to Addis Ababa, receiving a warm welcome. Their chemistry went beyond politics, speaking of a shared vision for the Horn of Africa. They reopened embassies and declared the state of war over. Border crossings reopened, reuniting families after 2 decades. Their unity gave people confidence in the peace. Critics worried the peace was too dependent on their personal relationship. Despite concerns, their friendship changed the mood in both nations. It replaced the language of war with brotherhood and shared prosperity. At the heart of the new relationship is the Eritrean port of Assab. For landlocked Ethiopia, access to the sea is an economic necessity. The conflict severed this connection, forcing Ethiopia to rely on Djibouti. Assab, a symbol of a lost past, is perfectly positioned for trade. The peace agreement prioritized reopening Assab, promising economic benefits. Ethiopian businesses were excited about diversifying trade routes. For Eritrea, reopening Assab offered a way to revitalize its economy. The plan included rebuilding roads to create a new economic corridor. Assab's reopening was a litmus test for the peace process. The port became a symbol of hope and cooperation. It was more than a place on a map. It embodied a new era. The port of Assab was the physical embodiment of hope. The reopening of the border promised benefits beyond Ethiopia and Eritrea. A stable relationship could transform the Horn of Africa. The rivalry had fueled proxy wars and instability in the region. A lasting peace could shift focus to economic development. International investors began to see new opportunities. Cross-border trade flourished, reviving border communities. Markets buzzed with activity, creating new livelihoods. This grassroots economic activity cemented the peace. A new trade route through Assab could benefit the entire region. The vision was of a cooperative economic bloc, boosting trade and jobs. The peace deal was key to unlocking vast economic potential. The economic dividend of peace was about stability and prosperity. Despite initial euphoria, the path to lasting peace was fraught with challenges. The reconciliation was vulnerable, driven by 2 leaders' personal will. Lack of transparency fueled suspicion and anxiety. In Ethiopia, some felt marginalized and betrayed by the process. The border demarcation around Badme remained unresolved. Mistrust built over 20 years couldn't be erased overnight. In Eritrea, hopes for political reforms were unmet. The peace seemed a strategic repositioning rather than a change of heart. Security concerns loomed as Eritrean troops intervened in Ethiopia's Tigray conflict. The narrative of peace turned into a controversial military alliance. The initial momentum slowed, with border crossings quietly closed. The peace looked more like a tactical alignment against a shared foe. The simple story of hope gave way to a complex reality. The story of Ethiopia-Eritrea peace remains unfinished. The bright dawn of 2018 was clouded by the Tigray War. The alliance between Abiy and Isaias is viewed with suspicion. The partnership evolved into a military pact, changing its character. The promise of peace was challenged by new conflict. The port of Assab remains a symbol of unfinished business. Its reopening was meant to be the crown jewel of the peace agreement. Yet the port remains largely inaccessible to Ethiopia. The dream of a bustling economic corridor is deferred. Assab stands as a monument to potential and limitations, Lasting peace requires institutionalization beyond personal relationships. It needs genuine reconciliation and domestic reforms in Eritrea. The hope of 2018 is not dead, but it is waiting.